Hey guys, GW coming to you live on your YouTube channel. A lot of people ask me, Greg, how come you can watch everything under the sun and not be offended? Well, being a janitor at where I work, it makes you immune. But the one thing that I will have to say is that I saw one movie when I was 10 or 12 that really put the icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned. And it really did a number on me psychologically and mentally, and it's a movie that I will never forget. However, looking back on it, you can tell, for a limited budget, they did some pretty slick work. This is the Toxic Avenger, as you guys now see. It's the unrated director's cut. This thing was put out in multiple versions, some in Japan, some over here, and there was even one version, believe it or not, running on USA Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried and Rhonda Shear. And if you guys can remember that, then, kudos to you, because I remember this, and there was actually scenes from this movie that were in that version, but were not included in the original theatrical run. Now, I rented this bad boy whenever I was, like I said, 10 or 12 from Primetime Video. This movie will scar a young kid for life because this is un-PC to the fullest degree. It could not be made right today. Now, The Toxic Avenger is a superhero movie before superhero movies became popular. Before the Avengers, before, Superman, before Black Panther, this was one of the ones that probably is not going to get recognized in the Hall of Fame. I can guarantee you that. However, there is a Broadway play playing with it right now, and this basically spawned two other sequels. Well, three if you count the, part four. But two and three are garbage, I'm not going to lie to you. But this one has a lot of shock appeal, and basically it goes where few films go. In fact, no movie theater in America would show this film due to the violent content of this thing. So with that being said, everybody wants to know what this film's about, so we're going to dive right in. It's about Melvin the Mop Boy who works at the Tromaville Health Club, who is bullied by the jocks, preps, prissies, hotties, and one little mistake changes Melvin's life forever. Now, this film has a satirical wit to it, so you really can't take anything that this film dishes out seriously. However, this became Troma's staple. As you can see right there, Troma Team Video has the Toxic Avenger logo on it. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But in any event, they set Melvin the Mop Boy up. He takes a dive into a barrel of toxic waste, and before you can blink an eyelash, he becomes the Toxic Avenger, who is now out to rid Tromaville of all evil criminals. Now, he doesn't just beat the crap out of them and lock them up. And in some instances, he pretty much goes balls to the wall as far as violence goes. And his trademark is leaving dirty mops in criminals' mouths. Now, like I said, I seen this when I was 10 or 12, and it really scarred me for life. There is a scene in here, and basically it deals with a bunch of these jocks and preppies getting high and going out and looking for kids to run over. Now, the film is way overdone and overblown, and it's supposed to be, because you can't take these characters seriously. They run over a kid and then graphically take pictures of it. And when you're a kid and see this, you think this is real. In fact, at the end of the film, I actually thought that at one point I'd be in the woods playing as a young kid, and the Toxic Avenger would show up just like they tell you at the end of the movie, because I had no idea about movies or, like I said, the way they were shot. However, this is an interesting film because as graphic as it is, it spawned a children's cartoon. And like I just mentioned, a Broadway play. Now, Troma Team Video, if you guys don't know them, they are a cheap movie company. They're almost in the same category as Full Moon, and if you guys don't know them, they're the guys that did The Puppet Master, Trancers, Doll Man, really B-movie things, but kind of creative in their own right. They're not mainstream flicks. Neither is Troma. Troma's other hit was Class of Nukem High, and they had some independent hits for a little bit there. Death by Temptation, which stars A Different World's Kadeem Hardison, and so on and so forth. I used to love Troma. I love their wit. I love the way they shocked people. But they are sort of stuck, and they are supposed to be releasing Return to Nukem High Part 2, which I am a big fan of the original. My wife hates Troma films because they are cheaply made, and they are. But that's the beauty of something like this. But this was the first one to put them on the map. This and Troma's War, which you can read about that film, had more bullets shot in it than 4 or 5 Rambo movies put together. And anyway, back to the Toxic Avenger. No film, no movie theater in America would show this, as I mentioned. However, let's talk about the cast, who is really good. In fact, if you get this from Trauma Team Video or Amazon.com, they really do pack this thing full of stuff. Now, this thing has been around for 15 years, and anybody who doesn't even know Troma can recognize the Toxic Avenger. Let me take a breath on that. This film also introduced lines of toys and video games. I believe Nintendo had the Toxic Crusaders. There also was a TV show, Toxic Crusaders. Now, there is a couple sequels to this, but like I said, they're not that great. So let's talk about the cast here. It's directed by Lloyd Kaufman, who I used to love and admire. I have since lost touch with Troma. I don't know what they're doing, but I did endorse them heavily. Michael Herz. He was the producer of Troma films. The Toxic Avenger stars Andrea Miranda. Now, if you don't know her, she is the blind lady in here that becomes Melvin's girlfriend. Mitchell Cohen, who I believe plays the Toxic Avenger after the transformation. Pat Ryan Jr. plays Slug. That is a villain's name. He's pretty wild. Jennifer Baptiste. She plays the hottie in the club, or a hottie in the health club that seduces Melvin and gets him in all this trouble. Robert Pritchard. He plays Slug. He is a badass. He's a staple in early Troma films. He plays the thug that doesn't care, that would beat up an old lady just for the hell of it. Cindy Mannion and Gary Snyder, Mark Torgel. Mark Torgel actually played the Melvin the Mop Boy character pretty well. So I was looking to see if James Gunn was in here because he was involved in some of these other ones. Directed by Michael Herz and Samuel Will, a.k.a. Lloyd Kaufman. The reason that Lloyd Kaufman changed his name is because when no film theater in America would show this, he actually changed his name hoping to get this in. Now, let's talk about the graphic violence because I'm sure there's some of you that want to know what exactly is in this film. Well, I'm going to start off by telling you it ain't Lassie. I'll tell you that much right now. After the Toxic Avengers transformation, Tromaville was overrun by criminals, crooks, evildoers. There is one scene in particular that will stick out, and mind you, when you watch this, when you're a kid, if you see this, it is shocking, but it's done with a watermelon. You don't know that till you listen to the commentary by Lloyd Kaufman. Basically, he puts a guy's head under a weight machine where the pin connects, and you can, decipher which weights you want, and crushes it, and then pulls the pin and the weights back up above the guy's head. You just see the dummy just kind of squirm around, brain splattered all over the bottom of the bench. It's crazy. There's also a restaurant scene in which the criminals get what they deserve because if you're an animal lover, they shoot the blind lady's dog. Now, mind you, everything's done with squibs, and if you watch this movie a couple of times, you can see how cheaply it's done. But the first time you watch it, it is effective. He basically French fries a guy's hands, graphic, makes a human sundae out of one, rips another guy's arm off. So all the violence is over the top. At the end of the movie, he has a confrontation with the mayor in which he rips his guts out, literally. And it's played for laughs because the mayor in this film is portrayed as a sleazy slimeball. He also takes a hot chick and puts her on some of those heating rocks, and it fits, the occasion. So it's almost like a revenge film in that respect. But the film, you cannot take it seriously, and I can't stress this enough. It's a fun movie to watch if you have a strong stomach. But this is an un-PC character, and today it could never be made. It's satirical to the utmost regard, and it holds up pretty damn well. The one thing that is interesting more than all that is that, like I said, this film had a profound effect on me. But what I cannot still wrap my head around, is that when you watch this DVD, there are scenes in this film that were not in the theatrical run. Stuff that USA just picked out of the vault and added, and Lloyd Kaufman even says in a commentary he cannot remember putting scenes in that film. Now, mind you, like I said, this had a couple of sequels to it. The second one, you kind of got to throw caution to the wind. They tried to make it more over the top, more silly, more goofy with the sight gags, and it didn't work. Number 3, they missed the boat. Basically, Toxie takes on the devil, and he battles this group in number 2 and 3 called Apocalypse Inc. And it didn't sit well with John Q. Public. In fact, the second one, they even know it's a movie. They poke fun at themselves by showing reel 2 of the first film, which is where Toxie gets, transformed. So really, it kind of makes fun of itself, and that's why I said you cannot take it seriously. My mom hates this thing. She saw the restaurant scene, and that was it for her. She almost puked. So Lloyd Kaufman did the job right. Now, number 4 I want to talk about, if you haven't seen Toxic Avenger 4 and you're a Howard Stern fan and you hate this stuff, there's only one reason to watch part 4, and that's Hank the Angry Drunken Dwarf. He plays God. That pretty much sums up the level of, education or good taste in that film. But like I said, it's all done for laughs. And looking back, I can honestly say that if it wasn't for the Toxic Avenger, I probably would not be venturing out watching sick things, or being able to be a janitor. It sort of prepared you and made you realize, that you can be tempered, is what I'm saying. So that's a movie memory, and I'm not endorsing this film by any means. I'm just saying that a movie this crazily, put together, graphically violent, it endures. And like I said, there's a Broadway play still going on somewhere. Toxic Avenger the musical, for crying out loud. Just like they put out Carrie the musical, and Army of Darkness the musical. I mean, there is a market for this. Now, this is a film you watch maybe once, twice a year, at best. So, again, I rented this from Primetime Video, and it really sort of changed my outlook on films, and it actually got me interested on how they did some of these effects. As Lloyd Kaufman explains in, Make Your Own Damn Movie, the book, he did all the head-crushing stuff with watermelons. But when you look at it, it looks very, very real, and it does the job. So, that's my memories about the Toxic Avenger, and I hope I informed you guys. But if you're thinking of checking this out, you want to get the director's cut. Don't get the R-rated cut. It just doesn't cut it. And you'll know why every theater in America passed on this film, and it did not get distribution. And if you want to see what, a very limited budget can do, check this out. GW, out.